Well, again, this will be another Every Beer Has Its Place review. And today we're going to take on the most popular beer in America, by far, Bud Light. This is evidently the best beer in America. Now, I will say one thing for Bud Light. I think this is an attracting looking package, don't you? I mean, has nice lettering, everything, nice color. I like it as far as the packaging goes. So let's pour this bastard. Here we go. Again, we get a foamy head here. I intentionally try to get a little bit of head going so we can kind of watch how it evaporates. And here it goes, fairly rapidly. Now, Bud Light, and is probably in the last 30 years. Well, maybe a little bit more than 30 years. I can't remember if it's late 70s or early 80s where this was introduced. One of the most is obviously the most successful beer introduced in that time frame. This was Anheuser-Busch's answer to Miller Lite, which had been tremendously successful and still is for Miller Brewing Company. And after their success, Anheuser-Busch, decided to make a flagship light beer, which is Bud Light. And what an achievement it was. And I don't mean that because it's delicious, but because it's truly not delicious. But there's possibly no... Budweiser and Bud Light are both unique in the fact that they don't taste bad. They just have this faint sweetness to them. This faint, you can tell it's beer, and it's not watery. I mean, it's just kind of, as I've commented before, I think, it's kind of like as Dave Chappelle would say, beer drink. It's not, it is what it is. But you cannot say Bud, we'll move that up here. You can't say Bud tastes bad. Because in truth, it really doesn't taste bad. It lives up to its marketing. It's easily drinkable. It's not offensive. It doesn't taste bad. It's drinkable. There's not much to it. You can taste all the stuff that's there, but again, everything's so faint and in the background that it's just it's there. I mean, it doesn't taste like you poured mixed beer in water. I mean, that's when I think of watery, that's what I think of. It's just that you mixed beer in water or diluted it. You've made just a beer where somehow, through the use of rice, I'm assuming, and other adjuncts, and through their process, they've managed to take all the flavor out of beer. Now, there was an interesting thing on microbrewing on Reason TV, which I recommend you watch. And the microbrewers were talking about how difficult it is to do this. That if you make beer at home, you have a flavorful beer. It may not be a good flavor, but you have a flavor because that's kind of the ingredients of beer lead to flavor naturally. But somehow, through some process, we'll talk about it more when we talk about normal Budweiser because I think it's better understood there. Bud has managed to take out all those flavors, and or at least dull them all. Without making something bad, but just making something weak. Now, again, I think it's always obvious what this beer's place is. I mean, this is a girl's beer. This is a beer for someone who doesn't like beer. This is a beer for someone who's wanting to drink but doesn't want to, get really drunk because it's fairly easy on the, it's pretty good session beer. It's affordable, although it's not cheap. I mean, it's important to note. Bud Light, like Budweiser, is the $6 price range. What I call that, $6 for a six-pack. Now, again, I buy cans if I can because they're cheaper. But it's at that price point where it's the same price as Yuengling. You can say Budweiser's own America now. But last I recall, and I'll have to try it again, I thought this tasted better overall than Miller Lite. That this was a better drink than Miller Lite. And so if you want a light beer at the $6 price range, this may be the one to get. We'll do Miller Lite again, and maybe I'll change my opinion at that point. But I don't think so. I'll have to. Maybe Miller Lite's better than I remember. But again, as I'm drinking this, I find nothing wrong with it. It's not very tasty, but it doesn't taste bad. It doesn't at all. It's just a decent tasting beverage with a little alcohol in it. And there's nothing wrong with that. This is not a beer that should win a lot of awards. It doesn't, it's lost a lot of its beerness, but again, it certainly has its place in our society. And I think when you drink it, if you drink it with an open mind, as opposed to a snobby attitude, you can see why it's become so popular, why it's been so successful. It's not an accident, and it's not just marketing. You can't, as Schlitz showed, you can't just push an inferior product off of a brand name and succeed. And hopefully we'll get some Schlitz, and we can talk about that, and I'll do a review of Schlitz. For now, that's the end of it. I mean, again, most of you have had Bud Light. I hope maybe I've gotten you to think a little bit different about what its place is. And that is that. Thank you very much.